If you're building your ABA company and you're tired of guessing, this is for you. We built the EBCBA blueprint to give you real structure, systems, and support without the fluff. Details are in the description.
Real quick, I wanted to share some context to this. We're going to start talking a little bit more about the group. You guys who are new to our community, as you're picking up these webinars, you understand who we are and what we're doing and why we're bringing in guests like Nicole and Gabby. And essentially, the ABA Impact team runs this ABA Business Challenges group on Facebook. We also have a lot of connections on LinkedIn and things like that. And if you're not in the Facebook group, you can always drop your email address in the chat here and we can connect with you over email to make sure that you have access to the resources that are provided in these webinars. Even if you don't have a Facebook profile, we still want to make sure that you're getting the resources that you need. The reason for this group, and I have a personal connection, ASD, I have two members of my family that are affected by it, and I have seen the difference between a child who gets early intervention and a child who doesn't get early intervention. I've seen a family who's in an area where therapy is readily available in South Florida. And I've seen rural Kentucky and what the struggles are there and how difficult it is for some of these families to get their child into therapy. So that affected me to really just almost out of anger to say, what the hell is going on with the ABA industry where it's so hard to get the help that you need? And there's a center right here, it's right by our house, but they have a waiting list and we can't get in. And we had customers at my company that I own. We do compliance, cybersecurity, and IT. And during that time, helping those customers, we started to figure out it's really just from a business, operations, finance, compliance, administrative stuff that really were leaving BCBAs that owned their ABA therapy centers in a struggle. And then we really dove deep and started learning about the struggles that private equity presents, or these really large ABA companies with all kinds of financial backing have the problems that they cause when they move into a community. They start stealing employees, offering them better positions and calling them at work and recruiting them and pulling them away from the small ABAs. And then that turns into a lower quality of therapy that's provided to those kids in most cases. When we put this group together a little over a year ago, we're almost at 7,000 members. I know we're over 6,600 now, so we're somewhere close to 7,000 members. And this group is blown up. And our goal for this group is not really on the clinical side necessarily, but affecting the quality of the clinical services and the availability of those clinical services by helping BCBAs scale their businesses and operate, right? And we know you guys are clinical. We know you guys have those caring hearts that you want to help people, but sometimes what's missing are some of these knowledge gaps or experience gaps with actually operating and running a business, right? So those are the gaps that we want to fill. I encourage everybody who's watching this webinar, get with Josh, book an orientation call for the community. What that does is it helps us find out what areas your business needs help in, and then we connect you with resources like Nicole and Gabby for everything from accounting to training to financial advice beyond your accounting, financial planning, software. You're trying to figure out a practice management system. Our team has contacts with all of these different software companies, and we also have leverage with them because they know who we are, we know what our community is, and they know how many people we have behind us. So we can pick up the phone and call these people and actually affect positive change in their companies that trickles down to you guys and helps you out. So really telling your friends about the group, bringing them in. If you have an expert that is really solid at something that you want to bring in that you think could contribute to the group, or if you have something to contribute, please let us know. We want you involved. We're stronger together. That brings me back to Nicole and Gabby. Nicole Stewart and Gabriella Davila are the co-founders of Supervision Reimagined. Nicole is a BCBA. You probably saw her on our previous webinar. She's a BCBA and a special education teacher, and she's been in this field for almost 20 years. And she's been through a lot of different settings and seen a lot of different needs that have been fulfilled and filled a lot of gaps in the industry. Gabby is also a BCBA. She's been in the field for 10 years, and they both own their own private practices. And then they have their side business, which is Supervision Reimagined. And they focus on staff training solutions that are meaningful to ABA companies and the professionals who work for them. So this is an example of one of our experts or two of our experts coming in and freely sharing their knowledge and their expertise with this group. So our goal from these webinars is that you guys learn something, take away from it what you will, what you can, ask questions, engage with these experts, try to understand what they know and how to apply it to your company and your career, and really just take advantage as much as possible and support these people. Make sure that when you're looking to work with somebody or you need to bring somebody in, make sure that you're contacting them and at least discussing with them what the opportunity is or what the help is that you need with your business. With that, I'll turn it over to Nicole. I know she has this great presentation she's going to go through today. Thank you, Nicole, and Gabby. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, Derek, so much for that introduction and explanation of the group. It's been a great group, great resource for a lot of different people. So we are happy to be here and happy to learn from lots of different providers and also be a provider that people get an opportunity to learn from. So we are going to jump into our training today. We are going to be focusing on the heart of effective ABA, which we feel is making sure that our direct care staff are well trained and well supported. So Derek talked a little bit about us, but just to share a little bit about Supervision Reimagined. Sorry, I'm looking at the wrong screen and I don't have my notes. Give me 1 second. My computer is so finicky. There we go. Okay. So a little bit about Supervision Reimagined. Our goals are we founded Supervision Reimagined in 2021. And what we saw is that there are a lot of supports for supervision that were based in the task list, which, as most BCBAs know, we're moving away from the task list. And it's going to be a test content outline, which means that there's more space in that fieldwork time to be focusing on what the job of a BCBA is meant to do. And so Gabby and I both felt really passionate about this job model-based fieldwork experience. And so we've been working to create a framework, create supports, create training, all of these components to move our field into this space where we're really training our trainees. Some places do it, but on a whole, there's many reasons why we're not able to get to it. Why many of you, I'm sure, and feel free to share in the chat, did your training, felt like you were prepared, and then became a BCBA, and you were like, oh my God, nobody taught me how to write goals. And oh my God, nobody taught me how to do this. So one of our goals has been to try to reduce some of those, I can't think of the word. Reduce some of those shocks or surprises when you become a BCBA by making your fieldwork experience more complete. But then also, as we've gone on this journey, we've also seen that a lot of businesses, there's a lot of pieces that go into this, right? There's a lot of reasons why our training why our BCBAs and our fieldwork experiences are not meeting that expectation. And in a perfect world where you have all this lined up, it works. But the system of ABA has a lot of barriers right now. And so we've started consulting with businesses to take a look at how businesses are run and structured in order to make staff training and staff management a priority. Because we find, and we're going to go into this a lot in this training, is that when staff are effectively trained, there's a lot of changes that happen. So I'm very passionate about this, and I'm going to turn it over to Gabby so that she can tell you a little bit about her passion as well and why she's here today.
Thank you, Nicole. Thank you, ABA Business Challenges Group. So yes, we've been working in the field for many years, wearing many different hats. We both have our own practices now, and we both do supervision and direct care. And so supervision specifically has always been a passion of mine. I love to see people who I've trained really flourish into being the BCBAs and RBTs who really feel proud of the difference that they're making in the lives of the clients who they are treating. That's what is super important to me. And so I'm so excited to co-host with Nicole on this presentation because Direct care training is incredibly important. It is really, truly the foundation of our field. And so when we decided to collaborate on this topic with ABA Business Challenges Facebook group, it really came in such a perfect time. I've seen, and I'm sure we have all seen, everyone who is attending this event has seen what inadequate training results in from the perspectives of the BCBAs, from RBTs, parents, and from client progress. So it is super clear that poor training affects every single piece of the treatment package. So how does this happen? So Nicole, if you could go to the
Yes.
next slide.
Yeah.
So I made this chart. I unintentionally made it to look like a robot. And so it really starts with some kind of barrier. So a barrier would be something we either can or cannot control that hinders us from setting up a system would be the lack of supervision time due to the limited allowance of non-billable hours. So we know our field is heavily funded by insurance, and this is really a common issue that we all run into as business owners, especially if you're taking insurance. This sets up disruption in the system to cause inadequate staff training. And this in turn causes many different factors. It causes the RBT to lack efficient oversight and support from the BCBA. And then in turn, makes the RBT either feel discontent, burnt out, possibly even quitting. Additionally, this causes a lack of client progress, which leads to upset and concerned parents. And then we all know that means that brings about more supervision time focused in meeting with parents and focusing on the problem solving of the programming, and then less time focused on training itself. What else do we get? We get BCBAs who feel ineffective at their jobs because of the lack of support and time that they receive to efficiently do it. They are either constantly training someone new because of the high turnover rates, or they're constantly training the same skills over and over again because they don't have enough time to teach to mastery. Fellow BCBAs and RBTs reach out to me often about these exact issues. And so we know this is truly a shared burden within our field. So in this presentation, we will aim to address the why and then also how to fix what we can control. So our learning objectives for this presentation are to, one, discuss the critical role RBTs play in ABA teams and how to standardize the expectations across your staff. Two, how to analyze how the current strategies intended to promote quality and efficiency actually measure up to the common barriers affecting quality training. Analyze the effects of inadequate versus effective staff training on overall productivity. And then identify tangible techniques for providing impactful direct care training. So the ethics codes that we will cover are.
Give me 1 second. I was checking the chat. Okay. Okay.
Yes,
There we go.
There's
I'm back.
people who are popping up in the chat. I'm not really controlling that. So please feel free to just jump in and talk about it. So some of the ethics codes that we're going to talk about are 2.01, providing effective treatment, 3.01, responsibility to clients. We really want to hone in on the idea that staff training is essential to our goals as practitioners. 4.06, providing supervision and training. 4.08, providing monitoring and feedback. And 5.01, protecting the rights of clients, stakeholders, supervisees, and trainees. So we have to protect everyone involved, which means providing the best quality care. So before we truly get started, we are going to share 3 keywords throughout this event. And this is for mostly people who are watching the recording, so you can obtain your CEU at the end. And so the first keyword is lemon. Nicole chose this word. Lemon, Lemon. So just make sure you're paying attention to all our keywords so you can have them for the end. So now I'm going to hand it over to Nicole to really get into the meat and potatoes of this training.
Yeah. And just to clarify too, with the CEU, so you'll get there'll be a Google form we'll drop into the chat, and then we'll have sent out as well for everybody who registered. And you just fill out the Google form with the 3 keywords, and then it'll give us about 2 weeks to generate certificates. But yeah, you'll get a free CEU for this event. Just keep an ear out for those. So let's jump in. So we're going to start by talking about the existing issues within ABA. So I know we've both kind of alluded to this already, is that there's a lot of existing issues within ABA. I think in our own journey, we've really seen that we have this idea of this is how staff training should look, and this is how BCBA supervision should look. And then there's all these reasons why that doesn't happen. And there's all these things that make that really hard. And so our goal for today is to make that case as to why effective staff training is going to lessen the impact of many of these issues that we face in ABA. Some of them are things that we still can't control, right? We can't necessarily control. If you are a BCBA working for an agency, that agency works and it's in network with insurance companies, we can't control those reimbursement rates, right? If you're a business owner, maybe you can, and maybe you want to connect with somebody who can help you negotiate better reimbursement rates. But if you're a BCBA, you have no control over what the company gets reimbursed. But because of low reimbursement rates, there's a lot of pressure to have high billable hours in order to make a profit, or to take on lots of cases, or to only take on cases with lots of hours, or to fill hours as much as possible, or to fill hours with a warm body because at least you can bill for it. I don't know, anyone has been in that situation. Maybe you work in a center, you work at home, and somebody cancels a session and somebody else is sent to fill in because it's better to have the company line is that it's better to have a person there than have to cancel the hours because you still get the bill for the hours and everything. It's hard for me to go back and forth.
Yes, we're getting some yes.
Yes. And Jessica also commented, I see, we need better pay for RBTs. Not getting paid for the day affects our livelihood. We need salary positions. It's so true. These are so many issues. And then the fact that it's a hourly position, I think changes maybe how the investment people feel in the position as well, which changes your motivating operations, which changes how RBTs show up for training and respond to training. There's so many pieces, right, that impact us. I'm trying to go back and forth, so I apologize if sometimes I have a second of delay, which all is related to high rates of burnout, high rates of turnover. There's so many different reasons. We would love also for you guys to put in the chat any of these that resonate with you, or like Jessica mentioned, the idea of salarying RBTs. What are other barriers or issues that you see that still exist within ABA that make it challenging for our field to be sustainable and manageable, lead to more burnout and high turnover? I am trying to go back and forth. Lack of support for everyone. It's so true. There is no support. I feel like you have some of that. We have a lot of trainings on a lot of different things. For me, I think lack of support comes from what I've learned is that I have to create my own strong network of close, trusted people to garner my own support, because I feel like I can't rely on the field to provide that. But I also work in a private practice, and my only coworker is Gabby with our Supervision Reimagined, and fortunately she tolerates my high energy.
Yeah, I think a lot of these in the chat, we're getting a lot of poor training, lack of support. We're getting not enough time for prep, not enough time for training. And these are all super common and all things that we are going to be talking about. And not everything, obviously, we can control, but for what we can control, we want to give you guys the tools to do.
Yes, that's so true. I'm going to keep on moving to be mindful of the time. Some of the current solutions that we see that are readily consumed, just as like a caveat, we're not saying that these solutions should not exist at any point. We have electronic data collection software. We have AI session notes. There's free RBT training modules. Some people are now outsourcing hiring to talent acquisition people. There's a lot of things. I've been in this field for almost 20 years. And what I've seen is there's a lot of these shortcuts remove the beauty and the science of ABA because we add all these shortcuts and you hire a talent acquisition. What Derek alluded to in the beginning is actually, this was before you guys all joined. Derek, we were having a conversation about how you outsource things and people need to know about ABA, but they don't need to be BCBAs necessarily. But you outsource to a talent acquisition person and they may not know the exact things that you're looking for to hire somebody. And so your hiring processes may go downhill when you have somebody who's not as well versed. I found that when you take somebody who was an RBT and train them to interview people, a lot of times you get a better outcome that way, for instance. One thing that happened to me recently with an electronic data collection software platform was solicited over LinkedIn by a larger company. And they were like, hi, we see you own your own business. Do your BCBAs? How long do your BCBAs take to do their initial assessment? We could cut them down to an hour. I was like, what? How am I getting to know a kid in an hour? I was like, this is wild. I understand why you're trying to do it because initial assessments you could bill for 8 to 12 hours. But in all honesty, I might take 8 to 12 hours because I've been doing this for so long. But when I first started, it probably took me 15 to 20 hours to do an initial assessment. So I get the idea of increasing our efficiency and making things easier. But how am I getting to know a child inside and out and then creating goals that are super meaningful for that child and that the parents are going to agree with and that are going to be socially valid for that child and that the RBT is going to see progress and meaningful gains? Because, right, I think one of the issues that I've seen working with direct care staff is they don't often understand working with a kid and you might not see a lot of progress day to day. And that can feel very discouraging. Or you don't understand, why am I teaching this kid? This is a kid who can't go to the bathroom independently. And here I am sitting them to teach them what a triangle is. Why am I doing that? And so then it creates, I know for myself, when I write goals that are not as meaningful for a client, I have to do more staff training. The parents are not as happy with me. I find that there's a lot more battles. I find, coming back to this beautiful graphic that Gabby made, that's my barrier, leads to inadequate staff training. And all of these things start to happen as a result of that. And just I get why you're trying to cut down our assessment time, but actually, what is that doing for us? And so we need to be asking ourselves these questions. Are the time-saving strategies that we're investing in promoting high-quality ABA? Oh, do they actually save us time? And do they actually save us money? How much money are we losing by me feeling burnt out or quitting and leaving the company, and now they have to train a new BCBA to take over my hours? How much money are we losing? Is the company losing because we're not able to keep RBTs because they're not motivated in the case? They don't feel engaged with the case. They don't understand why they're doing what they're doing. We are a heart-based field. I would say, again, feel free to share in the chat. We do this because people do this because they love the work that they do and they love the kids and they love the communities that they serve. If we don't feel that any of those things are happening, we become disengaged. We don't work as efficiently. It's not effective. And my grandpa always used to say, you take one pill to deal with the side effects of another pill, and then you take another pill to deal with the side effects of another pill. And so now we have this electronic data collection software, which has its purposes and has its reasons and can be really beneficial for certain things and when it's in certain ways. But now we also have, that's made it so that we have to write more session notes the way that everything's set up. So now we have AI session notes to deal with that. And so now what are the side effects? What are the side effects of the decisions that we're making and the things that we're using that we're not thinking of? And how do you use your time? There's a difference between using your time efficiently versus effectively. And just because you can do an assessment in an hour doesn't mean that it was an effective hour. So what I want to switch to, we would love to ask you guys, in the chat, if you think about the solutions that you've recruited for your company or that you've seen in your company, do you feel that they've benefited your company? What drawbacks do you see? If you are a business owner, how have you analyzed progress as you bring new solutions on board? And how do you make adjustments with those? And I don't know, Gabby, if you can, I feel like I'm struggling to go back and forth. I'm so transparent. I need tech help. If you guys know anyone.
Right. I'm looking at the chat and I'm just responding through the chat.
Okay.
To not interrupt you. It's amazing that we're getting some really good responses, and really we should be partnering with a lot of people in this chat because we're all on the same page.
We love finding people who our values align.
Mhm.
Temporary fixes. Oh, that Gabby, you said that. Temporary fixes lead to long-term problems. So true. Which is a sidebar, Gabby. I talk about future Nicole's problems a lot. And last night my son was like, those are future Jack's problems. Yeah, you got to think about future Jack and future Nicole and what problems you are creating for them, because sometimes it's a small thing that you're like, oh, I know future Nicole can handle that. And sometimes it's a big thing that future Nicole is not going to thank you for later.
And then also what we see is that it doesn't only become our future problem as either the owner or the BCBA or whoever it is that is putting in the system. It becomes an everybody problem, right? Because back to that chart, that initial chart, everybody is being affected by whatever this temporary fix is. So it's not just thinking about, okay, I can handle that in the future. I don't have time to deal with that right now. But in reality, it's not just our problem. It becomes a lot of people's problems.
Yeah. So true. It's so true. So let's keep going, because now we've identified the problem. So let's talk about solutions and why we feel that an investment in staff training is really, it's not going to fix all of these issues. It's like Gabby said, it's not going to fix what we can't control, but it can help reduce some of the issues that we experience. And so what does it look like when we invest our time up front? This is a study from Iwata and colleagues in 2000, and they used behavioral skills training to teach functional analysis methodology. And hopefully you all are familiar with behavioral skills training. If you're not currently using it, we have a great on-demand CEU for that, where we go through really quick in an hour, a really effective way to do behavioral skills training and a really effective way to make it as fluent as possible, because we think it is absolutely necessary to effective staff training. So in this study, they had 11 bachelor's level ABA instructors, and they used a multiple baseline. In baseline, the correct responding was about 69%. Once they used, and so in baseline, they did what people traditionally do. And they said, here's how you do a functional analysis. Here it is in writing. And do you have any questions? And maybe they showed it once or twice, or they did like little bits and pieces of behavioral skills training. But what we expect is, I wrote down how to do it. Now you go do it. You should know how to do it. So people are only responding about correctly 69% of that, and 69% of their opportunities. Following behavioral skills training, the correct responding increased to 97.5%. And I'm taking a closer look, for most of the participants, that was in 1 to 2 sessions. And so the investment in behavioral skills training took about 2 hours to complete, but the outcome then is that these staff were adequately and effectively trained in how to do functional analysis. So you spent 2 hours with a staff member, and now they're able to do functional analysis really effectively. And it stands to reason, you put that investment into the training, you don't have to come back. Like, how many people come back? You train a staff member on something, and then you come back the next week and you're like, we covered this. Didn't we cover this? Oh, I really thought we did this, right? Are people, I don't know, Gabby, are people? Yeah.
From my experience, yeah, that's the calls that I get a lot from just people I've worked with in the past, saying that I have such green RBTs and I am like training all these things, and then I go back and I observe the session and it's the same problems again. It's really just shaping up the way we are training, and behavioral skills training is so good for that.
Yes. Yes, it's so true. It is. And so that's what we get when we look at this individual training technique that is incredibly effective. And it demonstrates that when you put that time investment and sweat equity into it, there are positive outcomes. But also, I want to share a story about a client that I worked with. As I was building my private practice, there were times where I would take different positions for other companies as a contractor. I would do things here and there for a little while. And so I worked for this company, and the whole thing, but they hired me to do initial assessments. And then I did an initial assessment with a child that was over an hour away from my house, some people have to do that based on if you're in a rural area, that might be your commute. That is not something that I have to do. And for me, an hour commute is really far and really hard. The way that my life is set up is really not feasible for me. But they were like, we can't find a BCBA, so you're going to do it. You're going to be the BCBA on the case. And I was in a place where I was like, I don't want to say no. So I didn't say no. I took it. And then what was happening was, this is what it looked like in actuality without training. What was happening is for a few weeks, we didn't have anyone. And then we got someone, they would literally email me and be like, hi, we hired an RBT. Can you come tomorrow evening? No, I'm a single mom. I can't come tomorrow evening on a moment's notice. So then they'd send the RBT into the house without training, because even though I'd suggest, let's wait, I can come next week, whatever, they'd send them in. And this was the child was younger, the family was newer, the apartment was small. It was a challenging situation. There was a lot going on. The parents really wanted to show what their child could do. They were really over involved in the sessions. You would do something, you'd be like, oh, where's go get your cup. And they'd be like, cup, you know where the cup is, cup. I'm sure you guys have all had parents like that. And they mean, but it was really hard. And so we would get an RBT who might stay for a couple weeks. And then this is the cumulative graph. So like they worked for a week and then we couldn't find anyone. And then somebody works for a couple weeks and then we can't find anyone. And then someone works for a little bit and then we can't find anyone. And so over the 6 months, we could have had 390 97153 hours and we used about 60, right? That's a pretty poor utilization rate. And so when you're making an argument to companies that we should be paid for training time, that we should be paid for prep time, that we should be paid, this is a worthy investment, this is really poor utilization. And then also think about, spoiler, for me as the BCBA, over 6 months, I think I billed for about 10 hours of work versus being able to have billed for 52 hours of work, because 2 hours every week. That makes a big difference as well for me in my life. I can't stay at a company where the way that it operates, I can only bill for 2 hours. I can only bill for 10 hours every 6 months. That's not financially feasible for me. And so we want to argue, SAP, that this is not effective. The way that we're doing things now is not effective. And they would not pay the RBT to meet with me privately. They would not pay me to meet with the RBTs beforehand. They would give me 24 hours notice and send the RBT in regardless of whether or not I was available. They also trained nobody on their data collection platform. And so the RBT was just expected to know how to use it. So let's imagine that this RBT had been given training. So let's say they found someone the first week, they only did a few hours because they're getting to know the client, and then they get up to their full hours, and then they continue. Here's like, maybe they were out sick one day, and then they took a week off, little things like that. But you get up to, this was like 330 hours. So you're using now 95% of your hours as compared to, what is this, 20% of your hours? That's a huge difference because they gave us this time to invest in training over here. And so getting that time and paying for that, compensating people for that time to invest in training is actually going to pay off for companies. Now, if we go a step further and we look at, let's say, because I think one of the other core issues that Gabby and I have really seen over the last few years is that oftentimes, and that I experience in this exact scenario, is that they're just looking for someone to hire quickly. And yes, so many RBTs are wonderful. And a lot of people they hire are really wonderful. But oftentimes, companies make hires as quickly as possible. They just want to get the hour started as quickly as possible. There's like this huge pressure to get it started. So let's say a company came in and they really took their time hiring the right person that matches the family, that matches the experience. All of these pieces are put into place. And even the first 4 weeks, there's no services. And then you start with the similar process with training, and you do all your training, you still get a utilization of like 330 hours, which is still like, that's 90%. That's mastery criteria, right? That's mastery criteria in our field. That's still pretty good. And so that's what we want to aim for. And we really want, and now if you're better utilizing your hours, yes, your lower reimbursement rate sucks, but you're getting more hours reimbursed. So instead of maybe only making a profit margin of $6 per hour for 60 hours in 6 months, you're making a profit margin of $6 per hour for 360 hours in that month or 330 hours in that month. And that's a huge difference, right? The whole idea is that we want as many billable hours as possible, but rather than just trying to force a square peg in a round hole, we have to figure out how to do it in a way that empowers the whole team. And so I think hopefully what we've done is we've identified the problem so far. We've hopefully sold you on adding staff training to your plates, but maybe you're all secretly panicking because you're like, what am I supposed to do? I'm supposed to add more staff training. I'm going to give you the next keyword and then I'm going to turn it over to Gabby. So the keyword is victory, VICTORY. Hopefully, if you think staff training is an integral part of success for an ABA business by the end of this, then this will be a victory for us. And I'm going to turn it over to Gabby to talk about how our made RBT skills assessment will help get you started on addressing staff training in a few different ways. And you're going to get a copy of that assessment.
I just wanted to mention one thing just about this current slide that Nicole was talking about in my personal experience. So I only have a really small team, and I don't promise parents until I'm sure that I have a really good match for them. And this match is like a two-way match, right? Not just a match that like, yes, I can provide, yes, my RBTs, and I can provide your child with the most effective and appropriate services based on our skill set, but also that it's a good fit for the RBT as well. And that is about distance between the client and the RBT, like physical distance, and what kind of cases the RBT is looking to seek and what their schedule looks like. Not cramming them with things that are not feasible and that is going to burn them out. And so it has taken me some time to pair clients and RBTs. But what I can say is that after I took my time to pair the appropriate clients and the RBTs, and also I even recommend some speech therapists and some OTs that I know, and I know their skill sets, and I recommend them to the cases. Just truly thinking about those pieces before, I have had significantly lower turnover rates because things happen every so often. But when you really have an RBT or a therapist or a BCBA on board, and this is like the kind of case that they're looking for, it is physically in proximity to them, it is their skill set, they feel confident in that they can provide quality care, you truly get more buy-in from everybody and just more retention. But yes, let's move on to that.
Yes, it's so true. It's so true though. Okay.
Okay, so this is our RBT skills assessment. This assessment we created and we use when training our own RBTs and therapists, direct care training. So we are sharing it as a free resource for everyone who is attending this training. The skills assessment follows a job model approach. And Nicole touched on this earlier, how that is the way we prefer to train is on this job model approach. So basically what we did is we analyzed exactly what skills we expect our RBTs to be fluent in, and then we train each skill to mastery. And so this slide displays one of the 4 pages within the skills assessment. In total, the assessment lists 102 skills a trainee should demonstrate to be fluent in implementing direct care to clients. Now, these are the skills that we have seen within our practices that we require our RBTs to need. We don't expect every single skill to be generalizable to you and your practice, but it's really meant to be a guide for you to adapt to the needs and skills required within your practice. So, how this tool can be helpful to address common issues we mentioned previously. If we jump to the next slide.
Got it.
So let's say that your company cannot afford to have your BCBA spend hours each week training your RBTs, right? That was something that was said in the chat. We all know that is a dream. We don't all have the luxury to do that right now. So what do? We use the skills assessment to identify the skills needed within your company and then create a training library for your organization. And it sounds scary. It's not scary. And we are empowering you to do this. This is going to take effort and time initially, but when the same training videos can be used, then the same training videos can be used in the future with newer trainees and RBTs, and to decrease the direct training needed weekly moving forward. So we take a little bit of time, we go through the skills assessment, we see, okay, we need to train on reinforcement, we need to train on error correction, even just getting instructional control, pairing, all these little pieces. We put them in 2 videos, and then you can use this as a part of your BST. So you're not taking the hour or so of you chatting and talking about it, and this is how we do it, and the modeling piece. That part of the description is there for you. And then what you really need to do is just now, okay, I go in, I observe it, I role play it, and I provide the feedback, right? We focus more on this, the last part of the BST, where we're giving that feedback and we have competencies for it.
Can I just jump in on that one too? I think that there's also 2 other pieces to me. Is that one, I think as time goes on, people are becoming more and more visual learners. Like we're all addicted to TikToks or Reels or whatever. And so creating videos is a more accessible way that, like, whether you maybe as the BCBA, you come and you're like, I'm going to do some direct protocol modification with the client while you take 10 minutes to watch this video. And then you're going to come back and we're going to talk about how that applies to this. I think sometimes that's just like a more accessible way for people these days to understand and reach and engage with training content. I also think that I met with somebody yesterday and we were talking about how sometimes, again, with electronic data collection platforms, what they're doing, they've created these training libraries that are like, this is how you teach matching pictures to object. And so somebody can learn to match a picture to an object, but we're not teaching the concept. We're teaching like this one concrete skill. And so we're not teaching to generalization for our RBTs. And so we created those are the takeaways. We created this so that you have a list and you can go through this and break it down and say like, all right, I want to focus. This person is never doing their SDs properly. I'm going to pull out that video, that 5-minute video about what an SD is, how to identify it in our software. I'm going to let them watch it, and then I'm going to have them every time. I'm going to let them watch me and have them tell me what the SD is every single time I run a program. Great. We've made a training for that. And it's a little bit easier because now instead of you having to explain an SD to the 70-second new staff member, that video is already made. And one way to do that, obviously, you're not going to be able to make a whole training library overnight. But if you're working in a larger company or you're working in a company with multiple BCBAs, pitch this to your administrators. We need this training library. And if you can pay us an extra 2 hours a week for whatever, or even over time, we're going to create this and all of our BCBAs are going to divide it. Why is it valuable? Why do we need it? And we're here to help you guys. So we do consulting, we do all of this. So if that's something you're like, I want to pitch this to my admin, reach out to us. We can help you pitch it to them. We could also help meet directly with your admin. We can help create these libraries. We have all of this as well. So I just wanted to share my additional thoughts as you were talking, Gabby. Those things came up for me.
Perfect. And then let's say if your company cannot immediately move past the barrier of hiring very green RBTs with little to no ABA experience. We know that's a huge burden that we face a lot, right? And Nicole's chart makes sense, and it is what we're striving to, right? But let's just say you cannot do that immediately. So we need to reduce the burnout for your BCBAs and also so in order to do that, focus on the BST model of training. What do we mean by this? So Nicole explained BST and why it is important. So choosing a high priority skill that needs to be taught first, teach it to fluency, and then move on to another skill. So the slope for embedding new programming will initially be slow growing, but then you're gonna begin to see more of a cumulative effect, where instead of more of this plateau effect where you're teaching all the needed skills at once and observe no increase in performance. And I've given this advice to many different BCBAs who have really green RBTs and they cannot control the hiring processes of their company, and it is really decrease the burnout from the RBT and also from the BCBA, because even though they're only running a certain amount of programs within the session, they're running them well. You're getting actual data that is reflective of the skills being performed that you can actually report on. And then it is easier once they are understanding how to be a stronger therapist. Now we can teach more of the other programs that they need to know, right? It's too hard to teach everything at one time and expect great outcomes. And then lastly, if you have seasoned RBTs who are looking for some type of advancement, use the skills assessment as an objective tool to measure performance. It should be transparent and accessible to the RBT, and it would outline exactly what skills they need to learn and perfect. These should be partnered with competencies, of course, and we also just have some available within our BSTs on our website and on Teachers Pay Teachers for some further guidance and support. But it really takes out the subjectivity. It gives them a really clear, it's almost like a rubric, as if you were getting in a course that you're taking. They give you the rubric before your assignment is due. That's what it is for your RBTs. They know exactly the skills that they need to know. They know exactly where they are on it, and they know where they have to grow before, let's say, that promotion or the raise or whatever it is. So that's my spiel.
Hold on. Okay. I just want to check that. I'm going back and forth between the chat and you have to go exactly at 9. Got it. We are going to start to put everything in the chat. Yes. So let me go back to the PowerPoint. Give me 1 second because I will get that last keyword. It's on a different slide. The last keyword, it's on the next slide. The last keyword is green, G-R-E-N, green. And I'll put in the chat in just a minute all the forms and everything. So our key takeaways, I'm sorry, again, I have too many screens open. Thank you all for your patience. Our key takeaways, obviously, we haven't given you this magic solution that's here you go, your staff are never going to quit and everyone's going to know what to do. But we really want you to walk out of this training understanding that those indirect impacts of staff training are often not obvious to an untrained eye, but are incredibly valuable. And that we need to start arguing and advocating as a field and as behavior analysts for more staff training, whether it's 15 minutes before the start of the session so the RBT can review everything and paper bit by bit, pick little things, or initial staff training, or to improve the processes of your ongoing staff training. The other big takeaway that the side effects of other potential solutions need to be considered. And so when you are looking at, oh, we're going to move to AI session notes. I know for me, I think AI session notes have a really great place in our field, but I also am what I've seen as we've moved to electronic data collection. I teach a practicum class, and I probably had over 50 students over the last few years in that class, if not more. And a lot of them were like, oh, until we had this class, I've never looked at a single graph. I didn't know we look at these graphs. And I was like, cool. So you're all almost done with your field work and nobody's ever told you to look at a graph, because on electronic data, you don't have to contact the graphs that often. And whereas like when we were graphing by hand, you literally are like turning the page and graphing by hand. And so you saw the graphs and you saw the impacts, the visual analysis that's really powerful to see it. And so that's been this unintended side effect that people in training need proactive and planned exposure to visual analysis that we maybe were getting in other ways previously. And something like AI session notes, now if AI is writing your session notes, or you have AI that can watch your session and write the note for you, that could potentially be great because it increases your ability to get reimbursement and makes your notes up to code and decreases your training burden. But then also, what learning opportunities are your RBTs missing? What learning opportunities are people not getting? What motivation are you removing from that personal touch and that personal content with the sessions? And how are you replacing that? And how are you creating those experiences? And we feel really strongly that some of this just comes down to hard work and finding ways to work smarter, not harder, even if sometimes you have to work harder initially in order to make things easier in the long run. And so our RBT training assessment can be a great framework, and it gives you that entry point to reduce your own barriers, whether it's the lack of time that Gabby mentioned or the lack of knowledge, wherever the case is. All of this comes down to intention and being intentional with everything you're doing. And then bit by bit, things will start to fall into place. And I just wanted to end on this quote. The secret of getting ahead is getting started. At some point, you just have to pick a place to get started instead of putting out fires. Sometimes I'm like, that dumpster is on fire. We're just going to have to let it be on fire for a little bit while I try to actually prevent a fire from happening over here. And we're actually going to make it so that fewer fires happen in the future. Sometimes you just have to get started on that process. If you're not sure where to start, we're here to help. We offer BCBA mentorship. We have a library of CEUs. We have pre-made products. We also do business-to-business consulting. Here are some ways to find us, and I'm going to switch back to the chat now so that we can drop all of those things in the chat. And now we just have a few minutes to answer any questions, because I know we started the CEU pieces a little on the later side. So I'm going to drop all that in. And if anyone feels like they have any questions, please feel free to ask us now.
Yeah, and for any of you that aren't in the group, if you are in the group, this video is going to be posted the next day, but as soon as we can get it edited, we just clean it up for time and take out the blank spaces, uhs and the ums that I'm always guilty of. So we'll clean up. It's a little bit shorter on the once we actually post on the group. So you'll be able to go back and watch this video. So share it with your friends at CEU. And also, if you have any of the resources that you want, we'll be getting them out to everybody. It'll be there on the group. If you're not a member of the group and you don't have a Facebook profile, just drop your email in the list there. Josh has a list of the participants anyway, so we'll make sure you guys get all this stuff. Did we have any questions?
We have one question. It says, sorry, I was late, but I would like to know if your team provides training to various centers. Yes, we have different training packages. We have a getting started guide that we have on our website, and we will do training for centers, training for it's adaptable to the type of company that you have. The answer is yes.
Yes, absolutely. And all of our contact information is on the slide that you should be able to see, hopefully. And then we also have, if you are interested, we do intensive work with companies as like a training consultant, where we go through your profit margins and look at your turnover rates and look at your current training processes and how your paperwork works and all of these things that affect staff on a day-to-day basis, and come up with a customized plan, or we can, if that's what you pay us for, a customized plan. We also just do CEU events for companies, if that's something that you're looking for as well. And yes, do we do parent trainings as well? That's a good question. Gabby and I do privately, like in my private practice. Gabby and I have not done that together necessarily, but we could. I think it depends. I think the best thing to do is to reach out, and we would decide whether that's something that we would do under the mission of Supervision Reimagined, is to really focus on staff training solutions. So we would look at whether that is a staff training solution or something that we
do CEUs tailored to what we see is like, when we meet with you and we see what the biggest needs of your company are. And so if parent training is one of those hot topics, we would do one of those. We do our own BCBA supervision, which of course covers parent training. So we have to train on this anyways. That's obviously a huge part of being a BCBA. And so that's a part of our BCBA supervision. So we have both. And so if it is a need of a company, then we are happy to create that kind of formal CEU for you as well.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think we have like lesson plans for anybody who does do supervision. We have lesson plans to buy on our website, or teachers pay teachers, and parent training actually would be a great lesson plan for us to add, Gabby. We should add to the list, but they break down different job model based topics so how to do an intake, how to start, what do you do on their first day with a new client? And so if you are doing supervision, you can print those out, and it tells you what to do in your first meeting. And then it tells you the assignment to give. It's like a whole unit, like a lesson plan for you to do with your trainees. And it gives them more unrestricted hours and gives them the opportunity to learn that stuff that they're going to do as a BCBA, because we all have brand new clients where you're like, I don't know what kind of home I'm walking into. How do I prep for that? And so we want to make sure we're starting to equip BCBAs with that stuff.
We're definitely, our focus is on the job model. And so we want our supervision and theoretically everybody's supervision to really flow. And so, when it is, like Nicole said, it's intake time or assessment time, that's when we're teaching these skills and we have the VSTs to do so. And then that kind of flows into where you're doing assessments, evaluating assessments, then it flows into writing goals and getting parent buy-in and creating programming. It just like it all flows. And that's how we like to set up our supervision. And we find it really effective when you are training. I know this is more so for BCBAs than RBTs, but we do provide both types of training.
Yeah. Any other questions before we end this really fast hour? I feel like it was a great hour. Thank you to everybody who participated in the chat. And just as a reminder, please make sure to fill out the CEU form and the feedback form. We are always learning and growing as well. We love feedback loops, especially so that we can learn and we can do better and we can meet the needs of our community a little bit more effectively too. Yeah. So hopefully this is not the first time we will see many of you, and we'll see you again in the future.
And also, if you guys have suggestions, if you guys want Gabby and Nicole to go down a rabbit hole on any one of these specific topics and you want to do another webinar on a specific topic, let us know about that too. And we'll beg them to come back and do this for us again.
Yes. Happy to do
Awesome.
it.
You guys are great. Thank you so much for your knowledge and your expertise, and most of all, your time. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
Thank
We
you.
Have a great
appreciate
day.
it. Yes, you too.
Bye.
You're already doing the work, investing your time, your energy, and your vision. So let's make it count. Build something that works without breaking you. The EBCBA Blueprint is the way. Get started for free with our foundation course.